Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Simon Hodgkins, and I'm delighted to introduce Naomh McElhatton. Naomh, you're very welcome to the show. You're the CEO and co-founder at Dara & Co, and that's an innovative Irish edtech company. Naomh is also the entrepreneurial lead at Women in AI Ireland, another important role. A board member at Queen's University Belfast Students' Union, I believe, a STEM ambassador, and a brand ambassador at the ACCA Longevity Clinic. Wow. Naomh's journey, it's inspiring and driven by, I know, her own experiences in forming meaningful relationships. We'll get a little bit into that in a moment. Naomh's dedicated her career really to helping others achieve deep sort of deeper self-awareness, I suppose, and effective communication through the Dara & Co platform. And I know it offers expert-led masterclasses, articles, interactive live events, and ultimately we're talking about empowering individuals to foster more profound connections. So Naomh, welcome to VistaTalks.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Any platform to get to talk about Dara & Co, Simon's a huge opportunity. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're delighted you're here. Let's start off. Let's get into it a little bit if we can, Naomh. So, your journey when you were founding Dara & Co. I know it's a little bit deeply personal. Can you share with us maybe just a little bit about that story for our international audience? What was your inspiration for creating the platform, and how did your personal experiences help shape its development even to today?
Yeah, so if I take you back to autumn 2022, I was approached to come on as CEO to lead a new startup. This startup actually, in its first kind of iteration, was to be a dating app for the Irish globally. Okay, so this is warts and all now. And when we kind of started to look at the market and see, there's a very toxic culture with dating apps at the moment, and just how disposable people have become. And I just wanted to kind of stall, the kind of momentum in that, because I think post-pandemic, we've seen this loneliness epidemic. In actual fact, Simon, Ireland was actually surveyed to be found the loneliest country in Europe last year, which is very sad considering what we, the Irish, are: the storytellers, the communicative people, the kind of live wires, all of that. And to read those statistics was horrific. And then, based on my own failed relationships, I started to kind of self-reflect on me. What could I have done better in my relationship? Where was I not maybe very patient, or where was I kind of at fault? And having gone on that journey of self-reflection, you become so much more self-aware. And post-pandemic, we've seen this increase in social anxiety. We've seen this increase in mental health issues, not amongst any particular cohort, amongst a huge age range of people, both male and female. And when I was propositioned to come on board as CEO at Dara, I started to think, well, what could we do actually to support people build a healthier and happier relationship with themselves right now? Because you and I both know, unless you're in a good position, you're not actually going to be the best version of you. So therefore, the people you meet along the way may not necessarily be the best people to come into your life or support you in the way that you need supported. So for me, the foundations of Dara & Co now are very much led around building people's self-awareness, to enable people to accept responsibility, because it's very easy for us to point the finger at other people and say, it's not my fault. Well, in actual fact, it is, and you have to be accountable. I think the other thing as well in this world that we live in is to build resilience. You often hear the Gen Zers are the snowflake generation, which is not, shouldn't be the way. They have such an amazing opportunity to live fantastic lives, and the world is their oyster, and yet they are so crippled with social anxieties and mental health issues. So how do we support these kids coming through actually be strong, robust adults, ready to, handle life's challenges? And then I suppose the third pillar for me was about being able to communicate articulately. And this goes back to my first point on, the Irish being surveyed to be the loneliest country in Europe. Like, we should be able to communicate with confidence. We should be able to say how it is that we feel, and we should be able to speak our truth, to a certain degree. And so, taking all of those ingredients, we have spent the last nearly 2 years, which is hard to believe, creating a platform where it's all about the individual. And Dara & Co.'s content is about supporting each unique individual at their point of need. It's not a generic off-the-shelf solution. It's about storytelling. It's about expert resource and insights. It's all backed by science. And I think when you look at the whole world of social media and all of the other platforms that are out there currently, you could go down a rabbit hole and actually come out worse for wear, because you have this global world of unvalidated opinion. And that they say that the words of a song mean nothing until they do. Well, when you're going through that kind of self-healing, or maybe you're, curing a broken heart or whatever it might be, you'll grasp onto anything that makes you feel better. And it actually mightn't necessarily be the best thing for you to invest in. So at Dara & Co, we want to be very honest. We want to be very authentic, but we want to share those experiences to bring comfort and reassurance, and to support people deal with the personal problems that impact their life.
Wow, it's so refreshing to hear somebody talking like that, because on one hand, you've kind of got the cool technology platform, ed tech thing going on. And of course, you and I are both living in the world of AI today. But what you're talking about as well is human connection, honesty, integrity,
Yeah.
emotion. I think you were talking about there as well, which is such a human important trait. And look, let's just maybe another question about the platform itself, because I know I touched on it, a variety of resources in the platform, right? So master classes, podcasts, articles. You've got different types of content that you've invested in. So these must play a different role. And what was the thinking behind that from a format and a content perspective?
Absolutely. So I went through a phase of being an absolute addict to masterclass.com. I was always intrigued to hear these very successful entrepreneurs and business leaders and celebrities who've done really well in their field. And I was like, well, what makes them different to me? Or how can I compete? Or, whatever. And then I would be a massive bookworm, right? So I would read, like, I'm old school, I still read the Sunday papers. Right, there's like my guilty pleasure. I love the Sunday papers and a coffee or a glass of red wine on a Sunday. And so for me, we all consume content in very different ways. So we went out to market in January 23, and we spent like the guts of 6 months doing user research. And how people consume content is very different. I'm old school, but we now have the concentration span of goldfish. So if something isn't, if it doesn't go in there in like a millisecond, it's like, oh, we're bored. So we had to be very careful as to how we curate content, because how we consume content is very different. And for us, fundamental success in Dara & Co isn't about creating oodles and oodles of content. It's about actually ensuring that we have super user engagement and our consumption levels are high, because it's like, it doesn't matter if we have the most amazing, library of articles. If nobody's reading them, then it's completely pointless. So what we did, and maybe just to give you an insight into how we deliver and engage with individuals, is I was actually at a board meeting at Queen's, and I was talking to one of the board members, and I kind of given an insight as to what Dara & Co was about and our mission and our purpose. And this board member turned around and said, my God, Naomh, he said, I would love this for my staff. And as an entrepreneur in a startup, you're so agile and you're looking for that revenue opportunity. I had that light bulb moment. I was like, we could absolutely have this as a corporate offering or a student well-being offering or whatever. And it was like literally all these little light bulbs were coming on going, this is literally tapping in to your already existing network. So we went back to the drawing board very quickly. We do an amazing insights survey with anybody that comes on board. So for corporates, we do like an employee needs analysis. So we understand exactly where those individuals are and how we can help them. So the last part of that needs analysis is actually in and around how do you like to consume content? So we know exactly how people like to consume content, which then informs our editorial team on what the editorial calendar needs to be to create the right content for our users.
And I love that. I also love the term that you use, oodles of content, but it's no use, as you say, if people aren't reading your content, if people aren't engaging with your content. And I love on your website, for people who go and check out Dara and Co, how it says the human need first, plus
Mm.
experts, plus education, plus technology. And I suppose that's also part of where you get the ethos about it's not just transforming lives through the content, but you're also tailoring things like well-being solutions, mental health, but equipping individuals, right, with that sort of knowledge and confidence and resilience, and the content's helping you deliver that. Am I right in saying that?
100%, yeah. And I think, and I hate to use buzzwords in this world of technology and AI, but it's all about hyper-personalization, you know? So we're doing an amazing project with the university in Dublin at the moment on building out our AI model. And it's really important to me that this is delivered in the right way. I've been in this space a long time, and I'm probably deep down a bit of a geek, and AI and technology really excites me, and I love just the world that innovation, what we can create. But it has to be done in a really good way. And one thing that I've always been adamant about is that it's human first. You'll often hear people talk about human in the loop, or all of this, and I'm like, no, human first. AI was built by humans. Every touch point, every data point, everything that we have created, every piece of code was created by humans. And sometimes I think we get so immersed in this, the robots are coming and the AI machines will take our jobs and all of these conversations. Lads, relax. We started this, so it's up to us to take responsibility when it comes to the whole AI, process, and what we build and what we take to market. Now, there's bad people out there, but there's also really good people out there. So for me, I'm always thinking, how do we harness it for good? And it doesn't matter what you're doing, human first. And I'm quite adamant about that. Because I think, communication is genuinely, it's the heart of every relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a working relationship, in a loving relationship, in a parenting relationship, it's all about communication. So how do we build something really slick that supports people to be able to do that better?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's a great point. I've often heard people talking about human in the loop, and also more recently, the phrase human at the core has come up, particularly in international business and language and localization. But human first, I think, needs to be added to that at the front, because it's such an important point that you make. So thanks for sharing that, Neve.
You're welcome.
Just final question on the ed tech side of things, because I do want to get into some of the other work that you do with women in AI and STEM and Queen's University, etc. But you're obviously somebody who's deeply involved in the ed tech sector. Now, there's obviously, on one hand, we can all tell a story of how everything works and it's all great, but really want to dive into some of the key challenges that you face when you're building and scaling a platform like the one that you have. And how do you go about overcoming those challenges? Because it takes a lot of work, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. I wish I had a magic wand to say that this was the secret sauce and this is how you do it. This is my fifth startup. I have been immersed in the world of tech in some various iteration, whether it was, I first started out in a digital marketing agency where I kind of cut my teeth nearly 20 years ago now. And then that evolved into just finding a love of technology within the likes of construction and manufacturing, within the likes of retail and healthcare. So I've had many iterations of how we can utilize tech within industry. And I think when I look back, how you commercialize your product was first and foremost, because if you can't commercialize it, you can't run a business, right? So it's all about knowing the problem, creating a solution that drives impact, and understanding that there is actually a market there that would like to purchase this. It's about understanding the insights and the trends within the industry itself. Can you compete? Like, let's be realistic. We've got into this space of, employee well-being, student well-being, individual well-being. it's an oversaturated market, and it's a very lucrative market at the moment. And a lot of snake oil salesmen have identified this. And because everything is so accessible now, it's very quick to be able to, put yourself on YouTube and say you're amazing at this. We understand all of this. But for me, it goes back to the basics. It's like, how do you, or even maybe not basics, it's about being different now in the marketplace because it is so competitive. So authenticity is huge for me. It's creating and understanding the need. So when we talk about hyper-personalized content, it's about creating using the power of technology to be able to engage with you on an individual level, with me on an individual level, because our set of needs are going to be completely different, right? So rather than trying to be the showman and deliver everything for all people, how do we really harness that in to give the user the best experience possible to meet them where they're at? And I think that's the difference. So challenges are huge. We're a startup. We're based in Ireland. We're just started our seed fundraise. We're raising €1 million at the moment, which is great crack. We're obviously building out our AI model with ECU at the moment, which is really interesting because that's the piece that's really going to be our proprietary IP. But I think if we go back to basics, it's all about creating something that really helps people. And building the brand awareness through that. Like, we've huge global plans. Like, this isn't an Irish, but we're founded in Ireland, but we have huge intentions of taking this global.
Yeah, I love that. And look, you're no stranger to starting, developing, and growing businesses, and they escape their geographies and end up becoming international in shape. And it sounds like you've got another little rocket ship that you're building at the moment. So it's great to hear.
Let's hope so, because I made a very bold statement before Christmas. I said, this is my last startup.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, so it has to be a huge success, because I'm getting a bit older now, it's like, I don't feel like I have the same energy I had 20 years ago. Well, evidently I don't. But I think we're onto something here, and I have an amazing board. I have an amazing pool of shareholders and investors. I have great support this time, which is very different to my previous experiences. And it's amazing when you have such a positive, strong kind of support network. It makes huge difference.
It certainly does. And that going global ambition, of course, stirred into that. So thank you for that. And I do want to talk a little bit about women in AI, because you've got a leadership role, I suppose, with women in AI, and of course the work that you do in STEM. I mentioned that at the top as a STEM ambassador. How do you see this technology intersection coming together with these personal developments and this relationship building in the future? And maybe it's the context of that is a little bit in this, as you mentioned, AI and the robots are taking over. So that human relationship, that personal development seems to be going to be a very interesting area when you look at integrating that sort of intersection between STEM, women in AI, technology, and the future, right? Back to that human connection we were talking about, I suppose.
I suppose I've been a STEM ambassador for a very long time, and it was something I fell into with my first company. And I was always the one that wanted to support the underdog, right? Or maybe I was the underdog and wanted to come through victorious, right? So when you look at the world of STEM and the opportunities it presents for people and the doors it opens globally to do some amazing work, when I was invited to be a STEM ambassador, to go out to schools to talk about technology. And like, I'm not a techie person, my background was sales and marketing. I started out as a primary school teacher, so to have gone on this journey, I just seen the opportunity to be able to support people do something different. We talk about being trailblazers and breaking the glass ceiling and all of that. Like, absolutely, let's do that, and continue to do that. So I was very passionate about the work in STEM to encourage other women to get into it. And even back in the day, like, it was about, girls going and doing web design, or girls going and doing engineering or architecture or something, the latest kind of AI jobs have only really come through in the last 5 to 6 years. So then I got involved with Women in AI probably 4 years ago now. And I just think it's such an incredible community. It's a global community, and I've been very proud to be part of it. It's not just about, champion women, for diversity, inclusivity within the world of AI and opening those doors. It's actually so much more, such a support network. And I run the mentoring program for Women in AI in Ireland here, and will support any initiative that they have. And you'll find such an amazing talent of clever women who are, data scientists and applied mathematicians and PhD doctorates, and they're creating and developing this amazing technology. And I only wish I had, a fraction of their ability to do these things. I look at them in awe, and I'm just so proud to be part of that community. And for me, I know that I can, do make introductions with companies to get these women in the door. And so that's my strength, and that's the role I play. But it just blows my mind that these women have these incredible brains and minds to develop the algorithms and the code and work on the projects that they do. So I feel sometimes not an imposter whatsoever, because I'm quite aware of my own strengths and weaknesses. But I think it's such an important community for women in AI, and the changes that they have made globally. Like, they're obviously in America and Canada and Europe, all across Europe, and they're in the Middle East. They're in, so it's not just this small cohort; it's this global community of women who are there to support each other. So we have to keep doing that, unfortunately, in this day and age.
Yes, we do. And I suppose that trickles into investment and women-founded startups and women on boards. And, whether it's a startup going international and going global, or some of the biggest companies listed on stock markets now, that support of those leadership roles. And, thanks for the work that you're doing at Women in AI and as a STEM ambassador before the Women in AI piece came together, because it's really important work, because it's the next generation stuff too, isn't it?
It is, and I'm the mother of two daughters, two teenage daughters, and I'm super proud of my eldest. She just turned 16, and she's doing engineering. She wants to be a mechanic, and she's the only girl in her engineering class. And last year she wanted to drop out, and I said, not a chance. And her teachers were in agreement, because they were like, Aoife Lily, you are building a new path for the girls to come behind you. And to be able to kind of see that come through in my own kids, and to create small opportunities like that, are so important. It mightn't seem like much, but you talk about funding and stuff. There's still a lot of work to do especially within the world of fundraising. Like, there's still a lot of stigma attached. It's still a very, I hate to say it, paper man mentality, and yeah, it still brings a whole raft of challenges, but you just, that resilience piece, you just got to keep moving forward. And no, it's like, whatever, just keep moving forward, don't stop. And I think that's super important. When you have a no, that's fine, brush it off and go forward. There's still 100 more opportunities out there.
Such an important thing to say. Thank you for sharing that, Naomh. And look, you're in good company here on the show, because we've had the founders of Women in Localization, which started up very small, ended up becoming 10,000 members around the world in that movement. And also, I know Mary Cahalan, for example, at the BT Young Scientist exhibition, very heavily supporting STEM as well. And it was encouraging. I read recently that some of those winners of that BT Young Scientist exhibition, which happens every year, have gone on to found tremendous companies. So it just shows you what difference the right words, the right people supporting these people coming through can make in the world. It can really put a dent in the universe, can't it?
Oh, it's huge, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the support I have from my board, at Dara and Co. It's night and day to any previous experience I've had. And I think it's amazing collectively what we can all do. I've been in many's a room full of women, and I'm like, you know what? If we had control, we would get the world sorted, and I still think that's so true. There's we probably have to do another podcast on kind of the positioning of men within senior level positions and all of that. But Going back to the kind of encouraging girls into tech and all of that, I think it's absolutely fundamental that it comes through from primary school, that it doesn't start when you're making, decisions for GCSEs or A levels or university, but actually there's a whole piece of work that has to be done in the curriculum and throughout the education system to change. It's definitely getting better, but there's a massive piece of work to do to get us to a point where we think, God, yeah, this is great. Still a lot of work to do.
100%, yeah. Well, look, I don't want to run out of time, and I want to get a couple more topics in, because I mentioned at the top as well, you kind of sit on a board, don't you, with Queen's University?
I do
And I
indeed.
want to know a little bit about your experiences there, and also, I suppose, back to that integration of your experience with Dara and Co, work with students, particularly in fostering maybe some of that leadership and entrepreneurial skills. Tell us a bit about your work with Queen's.
Yeah, so I've been very lucky. I was invited onto the board a few years ago and I went with an open heart. I have been an associate lecturer at Ulster University, another prestigious university here in Northern Ireland, for a number of years. So I'm very supportive of the work both universities do. And I sit in the board of the Student Union, and we deal with all issues that arise within student life. And when you ask kind of how does that support DARA, it actually ignited the idea to offer a student wellbeing section on the Dara & Co platform, because when you see firsthand the issues that some of the students are dealing with, like you take it for granted, that you have money in the bank, food on the table, a warm, home or whatever. And actually a lot of students face, whole raft of anxieties, whether it's financial anxiety and worries. There's the whole impact of academic success, the mental health challenges that arise with that. Then, when you come into university, it's a very different life than from what you knew before. So all of a sudden you've gone from 17 to 18 and you're living in a house full of strangers, and you have to nearly morph into an adult role when everything has been handed to you. So you don't really take stock of the complexities of the change in your life at that stage. And so to be able to hear those kind of challenges that those students face is super, because it gives us so much kind of insight into the content that we can produce to support students have a more fulfilling experience on campus.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you so much indeed for giving us a little bit of insight into that. And also, I wanted to bring in your being a brand ambassador. I talked
Yeah.
about the longevity clinic. Could you tell us a bit about your work there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of works hand in hand. So over the years, I would have been known for being quite an energetic entrepreneur. I was always told that my energy, was infectious, and I was always kind of just me, And over the last couple of years, when we all go over 40, things start to change. And I was like, I wanted to kind of look after myself a bit more, got into a bit more self-care, I suppose. With broken relationships, you get into that healing process and that self-reflection, and how do I be the best version of me? How do I genuinely be happy right now?
So between your work at the longevity clinic, sitting on a board at Queen's University, and what on startup and the big rocket ship number 5 startup, and of course your great work with women in AI and being a STEM ambassador. I'm not quite sure how you fit it all in, but it's fantastic to hear. Thank you for taking us through that. And
Oh,
I did really like when you were talking as well about the human first, and getting the content to engage. And there's no point just adding content for the sake of content. Has to resonate with people. I really like that. Before we wrap up though, Neve, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our worldwide audience while we have them with us today on this episode? Is there anything else that you'd like to maybe bring into the conversation, or just a parting thought for people watching or listening to this around the world?
you know what I would love? I love it when people can be completely honest about how they're feeling, whether it's vulnerable, whether it's stressed, whether it's tired, whether it's overwhelmed, or actually whether they feel really good. And we're always looking for people to tell us what they would like support with. Like, if we go right into the granular level of detail within Dara & Co, right? So it's not high level kind of, overarching views. We get into the nitty gritty. So if people are listening to this today, I would absolutely love them to go to Dara & Co, to the website, daraandco.com, sorry for the plug. And in our little kind of send a comment, if they had like any kind of themes or topics, or they're struggling with, you know, anything in particular that we could support them with, we take all of that information and funnel that into a content calendar. So if there's somebody out there hears this today and they would like something created for them, we would do that with a hand and heart.
Well, that's a great note to end on. And that brings us nicely to the end of our time here today. I want to thank Naomh McElhatton for being on the show today. Make sure that you join me again here for another episode of VistaTalks, where once more we'll be discussing hopefully some more interesting topics with interesting people from all around the world, just like Naomh. And all that remains for me to do is to say thanks, Naomh. It's been wonderful to hear about all the fabulous things you're involved in, continued success with growing that international business that you're involved in. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing to support education, AI, STEM, and everything else you're involved in. It's been wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Loved it.